How to deal with Philby. The evidence was placed before an hesitant Jellicoe. He had known Philby to be a brilliant member of the Secret Intelligence Service, but a double agent. He simply could not believe it. He had done too much to help his government to be working against him all along. Is this all really necessary? Questioned Jellicoe. Quite, Prime Minister. Now please make a decision, sir. The man needs to be dealt with. The options available to Jellicoe were clear, yet he hesitated. He could listen to those around him and kick Kim Philby out of the service for good, thus removing any possible threat. However, this would cause national uproar, as a mole surviving this long in the SIS would be scandalous. Yet the alternative was not much better. Instead of having Philby removed, the government could try to pacify him. All future investigations into his influence would be altered, with immediate effect. There would be none of the public downsides of ousting him, but he would remain an issue, leaving the possibility of a communist takeover disturbing the eye. The Prime Minister had to make a decision. Something had to be done. This man would have to be managed with great care, for the good of the country. Bite the bullet, chuck him out, or we can appease him. So what do we think, chat? Should we kick the double agent out, or try to work with him? Because he is like one of the best intelligence assets that this New England has, but can we afford double agents in this new regime? Okay, so the two choices, throw him out and appease him, are now up. Bearing in mind, of course, that England has an exceptional record when it comes to appeasement. Works perfectly 100% of the time, every time it fails. So, vote, vote, vote. Get your votes in. Oh, this is a close vote. Every vote is going to matter. Blimey. This is very interesting. Unfortunately, shooting him isn't one of the options. You can either throw him out of the intelligence service or you can appease him. That's it. Those are your choices. This is an interesting vote. This is definitely... Some people are certainly wielding their financial apparatus of power for this. That's a lot of votes coming through. So vote, vote, vote. Get your own responses noted. And vote. Shoot him. Did Sterling infiltrate the chat? Probably. Foxen, thank you very much for the bits. Appreciate that. Thank you. Whoa. Okay. So, we are indeed throwing him out, with 55% of the vote versus the 45 saying to appease him. Das Schuttenheim contributed 50 bits, so thank you very much for that. And then Coach Duke also threw in a 28,000 channel points. And I have a feeling that several others of you did that as well, so thank you very much for that. Reeser, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome to all of your viewers. Hello, hello, hello. What were you guys playing? Votes are distributed on the basis of wealth. Gain 1 militancy across all pops. Okay, so we are throwing Philby out. And now we must choose whether to say the MI6 is for the Queen or cutting their guns. Except we can't do this because we didn't go with Philby. So had we kept him... Oh wait, dealing with Philby is an actual thing. So minus 20 political power, minus 10 stability. However, we do get an additional operative slot had we kept him around. But because we're getting rid of him, dealing with Philby is replaced by Her Majesty's most loyal intelligence agency, which massively boosts political power gain, overcomes the stability debuff, increases civilian intelligence, army intelligence, and reduces the agency upgrade time. Authoritarian socialism increases in power, and every state support for the Socialist Labour Party's polities will increase. And we lose 20% base stability, just gone. Interesting. Whereas this one would have been Philby pacified and we would have just gained the political and stability buffs. This is going to be interesting because we have a much empowered intelligence agency with this choice. Philby, bereft of loyal men, will have no more influence than the average communist Philistine. By requiring an oath of absolute loyalty to the Queen, we will be able to prevent leftists from joining our venerated service. Which one of them would truly be more interested in serving the Queen than decapitating her? MI6 is for the Queen. Playing Hearts of Iron 4, some of Napoleon's Wild Ride. Interesting. This mod looks cool. This mod is very cool. It's interesting. So we are currently playing as England. And this is, as you can probably tell, a slightly different game than is in vanilla. This is basically what would have happened had the Germans won the Second World War. It is 1965. Hitler is dead. They had a massive civil war in Germany to decide who was going to take over instead. And at the beginning of this, we were playing as the Kingdom of England, which is a German puppet. However, we then switched over to Her Majesty's most loyal resistance and overcame the traitors and collaborators who were ruling over the country and have restored English democracy and also Queen Elizabeth to the throne. So we are now playing as this new England, basically. Who won the German Civil War? Bormann, as always. And that is where we are now. So we've just destroyed a double agent in MI6, which hopefully will add a little bit more security and stability to the realm, and then we can start rebuilding after the English Civil War. So that's where we are. Boring man, more like. The ugly truth. Hospitals are flooded with victims, homesteads burned in the country, and the German people scream for justice. News has flooded out from the Greater German Reich concerning the recent discovery of great crimes committed by the rebellious territories of the former Generalgouvernement. The Polish state has been accused of brutal reprisals against German settlers in the formerly occupied territories, forcing them from their homes or worse. Photographs of mass graves have been revealed, apparently confirming the atrocities. The Polish state has rejected these claims outright, instead insisting that the German Reich has committed these countless crimes against the Polish people with the intent to eradicate them outright. These claims were drowned out by the sheer size of the German media apparatus. Despite the evidence provided by the Reich, many governments remain suspicious of these claims. Führer Bormann's government has a tendency towards outrageous claims and underhand practices. It's a bad day to be Polish. Can we pay off more of our debt? Yes, we can. And we're making 745 million a year surplus. Das Großgermanische Reich der Deutschen Nation and their allies defeated the Slovak state. Nation. One of these days I'll get that right. And I think that now is also the time that we're going to need to buy in some oil. So who are we going to purchase it from? Is there anybody that doesn't require... Well, actually, we have convoys, don't we? Where can we see that? In here. Because I have a feeling for a while we had a dockyard just building convoys. Yeah, we have convoys. That's not a problem. So let's go ahead and buy from somebody. We can't buy from the US. Trade influence is too low. Interesting. Well... Gulf government? Saudi, Oman, Canada. We'll buy from Canada. Done. And this should be able to refill our fuel reserves pretty quickly, because we're not actually using that much. All of the fuel that we have been using is going to our industry. So I just want to refill the reserves and then we'll turn off the imports again. Just want to make sure that we have a stockpile. If at all possible. Scottish President Robert McIntyre makes a state visit to London. London, Reuters. The first visit of the independent Scottish leader to England since the 16th century, President Robert McIntyre, arrived at Victoria Station yesterday. McIntyre and his wife, Letitia, were treated to a welcoming ceremony by the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment and the Coldstream Guards. Some small protests by people who believed McIntyre's Scottish National Party betrayed the United Kingdom in the Second World War were held, but the crowd was largely positive towards the visitors. After an informal lunch at Buckingham Palace, McIntyre then held meetings with the Prime Minister, other cabinet ministers and the Leader of the Opposition. During these meetings, several trade agreements between Scotland and England were finalised, including one where Scotland agreed to purchase several aircraft for their flag carrier airline. In a speech to Parliament today, McIntyre spoke at length about the shared historical and cultural links between Scotland and England, especially the recent support of HMMLR during the Civil War by the Scottish Government. Members of Parliament hoped for a change of the SNP's stance against unionism were disappointed, although President McIntyre did state that Scotland would gladly work with England as an equal partner in economic and defence issues. The visit to Westminster was capped off by President McIntyre laying a wreath for the unknown warrior in Westminster Abbey. A state dinner was held for the Scottish President in Westminster Abbey this evening, with 150 guests in attendance. In remarks before the dinner, McIntyre thanked the people of England for their hospitality and offered to host the Prime Minister on a state visit to Edinburgh in the near future. We have to be friendly to him. I mean, he did give us all of those guns. He did. Scotland was very good for us during the Civil War, so we like Scotland. Civilian budget boost is over. Well, continue, because I have the surplus to pay for it. Das Großgermanische Reich der Deutschen Nation declared war on Rydzat Tmoskvi Regie Polskai. Germany declared war on Poland again. Poland Feldzug. Screens across the globe have once more been filled with the stark image of Führer Bormann against bright lights and the red and black swastikas. The Greater German Reich is once more at war. Despite all attempts at negotiation, he claims the German people are involved in a Verteidigungskrieg, a war of defence against the violent terrorist government of the Polish state. Once more, German tanks will dig their muddy treads across Polish fields and the battle will rage. The largely unrecognised Polish government has responded that their alleged crimes are a falsehood created as a casus belli, but that nevertheless they will fight until the end in the resistance to the German invader. Despite the alarm of the soldiers of the newfound Polish army, they are hopelessly outnumbered by the forces of the Einheitspact. The war is expected by many to be shorter and bloodier, the recreation of that in 1939. How can it be peaceful when you try and take away your dignity? War in Ostland is still going on. Yeah, seems to be. MI6 for the Queen. Done. So we've secured our internal affairs. Now, do we want to rebuild the nation or do we want to rebuild the economy? I think probably the economy. Oh, infrastructure. Damn it! Oxfordshire, East Midlands and Yorkshire. I think those are all places I have not built yet. Thankfully. West Midlands? No, East Midlands I had. Yorkshire I haven't, and Oxfordshire I haven't. Okay. Yeah, we're going to rebuild the economy, and we're going to try and get rid of the joblessness, I think. Except that these are likely to be very popular. When's the next election? Not for a couple of years, I imagine. So I don't think I need to worry about this too much. Homelessness, hunger, sickness, such other conditions left to the hundreds of thousands of patriotic Englishmen after the violence of our Civil War. Even the traditionally comfortable classes like the business owners and the landlords have seen their wealth dry up, leaving a gaping hole where the economy once existed. If we hope to stand on 2 feet, we must mobilise all resources possible to bring stability and comfort to the daily lives of all of our citizens, rich and poor. No, Canada has no content yet. And Germany beat Poland. 100 Westminster Bridge Road. Harry Pollitt was one of the bravest men that England has ever known, continued Kim Philby to the crowd and the press photographers who had gathered. And when they asked for a name for this office, I could think of no better person to honour. His sacrifice in the London uprising has paved the way for the liberation of England, and a brighter tomorrow was possible because of it. This structure would originally be helping the collaborationists maintain their state police, but today it allows the important work that must be done to keep us safe, to ensure the rights of people everywhere are not trampled by their oppressors. And if Harry was here today, I'm certain he would be beaming with pride at what we have done and how he is remembered. Thank you. There was applause as Philby stepped to the red ribbon in front of a group of notables here for the dedication ceremony. The Mayor of London was not among them, eating cookies on the refurbishments table. He had not expected Philby to be so brief, and he hurriedly ran back on stage, smiling to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said as an aide handed him and Philby sets of scissors, "I now declare the Pollitt Building, the new home of MI6, open." Philby and the Mayor cut the ribbon as camera flashes lit them up. While Philby was outwardly smiling, he was inwardly angry that the Mayor had broken the number one rule about the structure, that this was officially a nondescript office structure for some unnamed agency, nothing more, even if everyone knows differently. What was Philby doing there? We kicked him out. I guess they hadn't expected us to do it quite so quickly. Hard Rudder Jim, thank you very much for the follow. Welcome to the channel. Kicked him out a bit too fast, yeah, apparently. In real life, Philby drank himself to death as the USSR really sucked to live in. Hey, Mystery. How are you doing? 120. We need 150 to work on the army. Are these getting worse? Yeah, they are, because this used... No, that's always been bad. These used to be 1 point something. After a morning of unproductive meetings, one could use a nice stroll to clear the mind. So thought Prime Minister Jellicoe as he walked out of Westminster Palace. George Jellicoe's stroll would not stay pleasant much longer as he rounded the corner, hoping to pick up a pastry from a favourite bakery. Instead, he ran into a crumbling storefront, a faded sign hanging slanted on dirty glass. The whole street was in a sorry state. For every open business, there were two more closed or on their way out. The homelessness dotted the street, surrounded by empty houses. Suddenly, a single gunshot loudly broke Jellicoe's focus on the street. As his security detail dragged him away, a woman shrieked as she entered her husband's room, finding him with a smoking pistol in one hand and a brown envelope in the other. The Prime Minister returned to Downing Street, shaken but filled with new resolve. As Jellicoe sat down, Eccles and several other officials presented him with a report on the state of the economy. The numbers were, as expected, not looking great. He paid them little attention. It wasn't anything he hadn't already seen. The Prime Minister picked up the phone. "Get Shirley on the line." Okay, so we are going to start rebuilding the economy. This will increase support for the Whigs. This will also start increasing our poverty rate, which would be, quite frankly, amazing. So let's do that. London's ruins are a sorry sight. Emancipated children, haggard families, rampant crime. And this is the centre of our wealth. Imagine the situation in the rural villages. We cannot move forwards with so many people, so many children in dire economic straits. As of now, our most immediate goal is to provide the necessities to all of those left in destitution. 3 meals a day, clean water in a heated home, basic healthcare. These are our promises to all those crushed by the violence of the Civil War. So how is the poverty rate looking right now? Because that's... Oh no, it's not... Yes, it is increasing. Just very slowly. Same as the industrial expertise, so we're a long way away from actually getting any buffs. Reichskommissar Ostland defeated Lettland. Stahlecker wins in Ostland. News from Ostland today as Franz Walter Stahlecker and his loyalists have announced their victory in the brutal conflict that consumed Ostland. Stahlecker has announced that the new regime will continue most of the policies of the old. This means that, to the surprise of nobody, nothing will change in this part of the Reich. Stahlecker claims that the continued improvement of the economic and industrial sectors, as well as a focus on rebuilding the colony after the Civil War. Observers have pointed out that the policies of the last regime are the only thing that allowed such violence, and that a strict copying of what was done before will most likely be ineffectual when facing the Herculean task of mending together the colony. Stahlecker seems undeterred in the face of reality. Same old Ostland. Yeah, we've got Elizabeth II in charge. Wait, I lost political power again. Where does it keep going? Because I'm not spending it. These don't cost political power. Nine Regent Terrace. The recognition of Scottish independence led to an whole host of things to be decided by England. Who would be the ambassador, for starters? What trade agreements to sign, and where should the embassy go? Edinburgh didn't have a number of embassy buildings like London had, especially since many nations refused to see him as a legitimate government up until recently. They did have a series of former consulates from before the Second World War, and many nations used those to conduct business with the Scottish government. England wanted a bit more than that, however. They wanted something a bit better, more imposing, to get the message to Scotland that they were the top dogs in this relationship. Unfortunately, large and ominous buildings were a bit of a rare commodity in Edinburgh at the moment, and many people didn't want to spend money on a new structure that might not be completed until Scotland rejoined the UK. So they decided to a compromise and purchase a pre-existing structure that was close to Scotland's government. They found that they needed a building almost next to the old Parliament House in Edinburgh. It looked like an embassy, had space for one, and was close enough for the message across, so the English set up shop there was absolutely perfect. Except for the US Embassy being next door and closer to the Scottish government. Always second fiddle to the bloody Yanks. That's funny. Burgundian bunkers? Shocking news out of the hermit state of Europe today as the Swiss government reports that Burgundy has begun the construction of a series of large bunkers in the Western Alps. The move has earned much scorn from critics of the Reich, who say that they are hidey holes for the Burgundian leadership in the case of armed conflicts with Germany. The Ordnungsstadt is a rare communication with the outside world, has issued a condemnation of the invidious lies of the Swiss, but has not denied that they are building bunkers. It remains to be seen why they are wasting time on this matter. The beginning of a Burgundian spring, or just more corruption? Any news of Burgundy is guaranteed bad news. Yeah, I kind of assume that. The Republic of Pavlodar declared war on the Polish Autonomous Soviet Socialist Republic. Okay, the poor has been completed. So we can go for cheaper housing, which will provide building slots, so we can have social programs, which will increase the poverty monthly change even further. However... Oh, this is no unemployment to trinket unemployment, so proportional GDP costs will increase. But I like the idea of decreasing our poverty rate even further. The legacy of the fascist collaborators is one of the scraps to the poor. With the current state of our economy, we must immediately rectify this callousness. We will find the money, whatever the means, nationalise, tax, expropriate if absolutely necessary, all for uplifting the poor. We cannot tread too hard on the individuals with some sums of wealth, but we can cut them down just a peg to feed the hungry and house the homeless. Begin. 150. We have 150. We're doing that one, and we're doing that one. And that is a big improvement. The Battle of Barcelona. Shocking scenes have emerged from the growing crisis of the Iberian Peninsula as the uncontrollable political violence threatens to spread across the nation. Catalonia has seen some of the worst fighting between political dissidents and government forces who have been clashing day and night in the region's capital. In scenes eerily reminiscent of the Spanish Civil War, barricades were manned once again, and neighbour was put against neighbour, and ideological leanings took over the lives of the Barcelona's residents. For the moment, the radical leftist trade union known as the CNT-FAI and its sympathisers have wrested control of Barcelona and are now set for a bloody, prolonged struggle against the counterattack of pro-government forces. It's a tale as old as time itself for Spain, as the nation plays out the bloody, tumultuous years of the 30s once more. Iberia's test has come. Hey, Marshal. Still think the 250 political power decisions regarding High Command are more efficient. I disagree, because these are both mild increases, whereas the other two are major increase or moderate increases. They're just bigger jumps. And they're more expensive, and more expensive is usually good. The Siberian Black Army declared war on the Federation of Novosibirsk and Altai. This is it. This is the showdown. And we've got our ATs. We could upgrade our motorized, but no, I don't think we want to do that. We want to upgrade our artillery. That is one thing we do want to do. Because we want to grab basic artillery here. And then engineering is done. Let's get the 1960s engineering. Scotland is definitely free. And I'll probably try to keep Scotland free. Scotland earned their independence. Okay, cheaper housing. As we have packed up our social programs, there has been some blowback from the private sector. Nowhere has this been more acute than the well-organised associations of landlords across England. They protest loudly that the communist proposal to create public housing. More productively, they have worked with some of our social democratic and liberal colleagues to draft up a plan for cheaper housing. Via public-private partnerships, we can encourage these landlords to build thousands of new housing units with certain regulations imposed, keeping public housing to a marginal level. Mordred secures Breton leadership. After reports of increased tensions between the various political forces within Brittany in the wake of the German Civil War, the situation appears to have calmed down. International observers are confirming reports that Olivier Mordred's crackdown on his opponents has resulted in a successful counter against the upheaval. Both of the extremist wings of the SBB and the democratic hopefuls of the SAV have been, for the time being, silenced. As Mordred is well into his third decade of heading the Breton National Committee, experts everywhere wonder if things will remain as they have since the Congress of Pontivy in 1940, or if Mordred is simply ready to make his plans a reality. How is this news?